Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining today for the City and Guilds webinar on the Hair and Beauty Technicals. Today we will be covering on the agenda today we'll be covering the technical qualifications. I'm really going to be concentrating today on preparing your learners for the end knowledge test. We're going to go through planning preparation. We're going to go through some generic resources and support materials we've got to support you and your learners with this journey. And then today we're going to really concentrate on the assessment of the technical exam guides. I will be going through some synoptic assessment and tips around your synoptic assessment. But we're really pleased to state that some of our principal moderators will be carrying out a webinar on the practical activity around the synoptic assessments in February. As soon as I have those dates, I will forward them to you. We will do one on level 3 in hairdressing, one on level 3 in beauty therapy, level 3 in media makeup, and one on key stage 4, the technical award in hair and beauty studies. We're doing it on level 3 this year because we've got live material that we can share with you that could go through tips on how we mark, how we place learners in bands, and a bit around the moderation activity. Also, we'll be finishing on the support resources we've got to support you learners. So we've seen this before, but I am going to run through it again. So our technical qualifications are made up out of 4 components. Not every qualification has optional units, but if they do, it is a mandatory part of that qualification to achieve the overall qualification. So we've got our synoptic practical assignment, which is externally set, internally marked and externally moderated by the City and Guilds. The practical synoptic assignment is worth 60% of the qualification. And you all should have now been able to see what is going to be in that synoptic assessment, which the window opens in February. From lessons learned from last year, we shared this with you at the beginning of September. Obviously, you can't share this with your learners until 4 weeks before your first synoptic assessment, and thinking that the window opens in February. We have our externally set and externally marked knowledge test. This contributes to 40% of the final grade, and it's externally set, externally marked by City and Guilds. And this is what I'm going to be spending time on today to prepare you, to prepare your learners for that end knowledge test. We have the employer involvement activity. What you need to be thinking about now is submitting your plans to City and Guilds, and it is only a plan of what you're thinking of doing with your learners this year. Obviously, you've got 2 people to think for the technical qualifications. If you're doing this as part of a programme of study, you will have to do substantial hours with employer involvement activities and external work experience with your learners. But for the technical qualification for City and Guilds, you just have to show that each learner has undertaken some form of meaningful employer involvement activities. We do this really well in hairdressing and beauty therapy. So it could be that you've had Dermalogica in for a product session with your learners. You could have Weller or L'Oreal coming in to do a session with your learners. Or maybe employers coming in to help you mark alongside you as part of that mock assessment. This is all types of employer involvement activities that you could use. Your optional units are externally set. They are marked by you, and this is the only area that you have to do some form of IQA activity. As we well know, with the practical and the end knowledge test, you have got no IQA activity, so you've got all the time to spend teaching and developing those learners' skills without the burden of ongoing assessment. Because the optional units are assessed and graded by yourselves, you have to show some IQA activity. And on lessons learnt from last year, we would strongly advise you, if you do complete those optional units early, please submit them onto the portal, because if you submit them slightly earlier, you will get feedback from your moderator. If you leave it to the very last minute, then you won't get that feedback from the moderator. Although the optional units make up part of the overall qualification, it does not contribute to the final grade. The two areas that contribute to the final grade is the Synoptic Practical Assignment and the end assessment, the knowledge test. So we have lots of support materials to support you with this journey. We have updated them this year because we wanted to go into slightly more detail for you. When you get this presentation through, each one of these is a hyperlink to the relevant page on our website. So we have our Employer Involvement Guide, which goes through exactly the requirements for the technicals of what you need to show by the end of June. We have our Marking and Moderation Guide, and this has changed slightly this year. We have upped the sample size to a minimum of 12 learners. So if you have 100 learners doing a technical in hairdressing, then we want to see a minimum sample size of 12 learners. And I'm going to talk you through that in a moment. We have our technical checklist. Our technical checklist gives you key dates that you need to be thinking about along the way, that you need to make sure that you should have already registered your learners by the end of October. The next key date for you is by the 22nd of December. You need to be telling us if your learners are doing the Synoptic this year, this academic year. And don't forget, they don't have to do it in the same academic year. You can deliver a technical over 2 years. Don't think you will be, but you may be, especially if you're delivering this to adults, maybe on a part-time process. You have to also think about telling us fairly soon, by the 22nd of December, if you want your learners to do a paper-based knowledge test or an online knowledge test. I'm going to go through that with you in a moment. You have already had your exams timetable. You should be already communicating that with your exams team to say when your first attempt is going to be and when your second attempt is going to be. Just lessons learnt from last year, I would be highly recommending that you tell your learners that they actually have 2 knowledge tests. We know the first one is the first opportunity and the second one is the resit opportunity, but some learners last year were so sure of themselves passing on the first attempt that actually they booked a holiday for the second attempt. If your learners pass on the first attempt, they can still have the opportunity to resit again in the summer series to try and improve their grade. Obviously there will be a resit fee for this, but those learners may want to try and improve their grade. Like GCSEs and A-levels, the best grade counts. So if they get a merit on the first attempt and actually they decide to go and try and resit to get a better grade in the June series, and then maybe they only get a pass, the merit will still count. We have our teaching, learning and assessment guides. This is all about teaching practice, getting your learners ready, talking to you about command verbs, getting those learners fully prepared for that knowledge test, as well as getting them fully prepared for that end synoptic practical assignment as well. At the beginning of the year, we would have sent you out a technical welcome pack, which would have all of these key documents in. Each term now, or each half term, we will be sending you out a newsletter. You would have had the autumn newsletter giving you prompts about, don't forget to think about registering your learners, don't forget about now register them for that knowledge test and that synoptic. So, preparation. Have you got all your resources ready? I forgot to say at the beginning, if you do have any questions, please type them in and I will answer your questions as I'm going along or at key times. So, your qualification handbook. Your qualification handbook is your teaching syllabus. The nuts and bolts of everything you need to deliver to those learners to make them fully prepared for that end knowledge test and that end practical assignment. When we are writing the practical assignment and when we're writing the knowledge test, our examiners only can use things that are in that qualification handbook to make sure that the knowledge test and the practical is around the depth and breadth of skills and knowledge that you've delivered to your learners. To say, you would have received the Synoptic Assessment Pack. Yes, these are password protected and you need to go and get the passwords from Walled Garden, but you need to make sure that you've read those, you've familiarised yourselves with them, and you know exactly what is expected of your learners. We've also got qualification reports. They are on our website, they're not password protected, and it goes into how those learners performed last year for the practical and the knowledge tests. Please make sure that you've looked at these and you are actually looking at where our learners did really well and where maybe our learners didn't do quite so well last year. We need to learn from, not mistakes, but we need to learn from lessons learned from last year of how we can improve things for our learners to make sure they are in the best opportunity to be able to get the best grades. Your principal moderator reports is an insight into how learners did with the practical synoptic assignment last year. It gives you a national picture. It gets you to understand what the pass mark was and how many learners got a pass, a merit, a distinction and a distinction star. We've also got our Chief Examiner reports, which is an insight into how learners did for the first spring exam series and how they did for the June exam series. We've got past papers and marking guides. You need to really have a look at those to make sure that you are fully preparing your learners for that knowledge test. We've had sample synoptic assignments which you're probably using now as mock assessments with your learners. And we have got these new exam guides which I'm going to go into and have a look with you. So, just to familiarise ourselves with the externally set and externally marked tests, it is externally set and externally marked. They are dated entry exams, very similar to a GCSE, very similar to an A-level. There will be questions that will be will have stretch and challenge case study questions in there. And you have a decision now to make. Do your learners do it as a paper-based exam or an online exam? You can make a decision depending on the needs of the individual learners. Just from some of our experiences from last year, if you have a learner that has got very, very poor handwriting skills, then I would advise them to do it online. There are fors and against for both online and paper. Some of the examples that we've had this year is when our markers have been looking at some of the scripts from learners. If it is paper-based and they are handwritten, my markers are not looking for the use of English language. We're not worried particularly about their spellings or their grammar, but my markers do have to be able to read the scripts, to be able to try and decipher what those learners are saying to give them the best possible marks. And in some cases this year, when the learner's handwriting has been quite poor, it has been a real challenge for my markers to be able to understand what those learners are trying to say in those written papers. But for the online paper, online test, if you have a learner maybe that their typing skills are not as quick as what their writing skills is, this could put them at disadvantage. Also, we had some reports last year that actually if you've got 30 learners in a computer suite, they're all typing away, that actually the noise of them typing can be quite disruptive. So you really have to think about what is best for each individual learner. And you can have a mixture of paper and or online. It should be depending on what is best for each individual learner. This year, our knowledge test will only cover the critical knowledge. We're going to go through the exam guides in a moment, which states what our areas will be tested, so you can fully prepare your learners for that end knowledge test. It contributes to 40% of the technical qualification, and it's graded distinction, merit, pass, and possibly fail. And on the first attempt, the spring series, we had quite a few learners that did fail. They have one opportunity for a resit. Once you get the learners sits in March, you'll get the results back around about the 23rd of April. Then you have slightly more time this year if you have learners that haven't been successful to prepare them for the resit opportunity, which is in June. If they fail the resit opportunity, they fail the qualification. So we really need to be thinking about how we fully prepare these learners to give them the best opportunity to get through that knowledge test. So just some exam preparation and some tips. What we're going to do in a moment, we're going to look through an exam guide. And what you then need to think about is going through your qualification handbook and highlighting those areas that will be covered in that exam knowledge test. For me, the best things that probably you need to think about is splitting your knowledge now. Thinking about having a theory lesson on how you prepare your learners to pass that end knowledge test. So within that theory lesson, you will be going through those critical knowledge areas that will be covered in that knowledge test. You'll be talking to them about command verbs. What do we mean by state? What do we mean by describe? And in your other theory lesson, it's putting theory into practice. The theory they need to know to be able to support them with that synoptic practical assignment. They have to start thinking about the command verbs. What do they mean? You have to reinforce knowledge through practical as well. We have to become that inner child with our learners and keep on asking them, okay, you're doing that massage technique, okay, great, but tell me why. You're using that cutting technique, okay, that's great, but tell me why. We need to use recall and recap activities in every lesson. Using the correct terminology with our learners, you know, talking about the correct words for A and P, talking about the words that we use in that qualification handbook. Learners this year, with some of the environmental sustainable working practices, we have to deliver environmental sustainable working practices, but they didn't understand the key terms and those type of words with them. So you need to use these words with them. Use your qualification handbook. The terms that will be in that knowledge test are going to be the terms that we use in the qualification handbook. Exam preparation tips. Importance of reading the questions. Now, from lessons learned from last year, our learners weren't reading the questions correctly. They were getting muscles and bones round the wrong way. How do we get our learners to read the questions properly? And this has got to be some of the exam preparation you do with them. Printing off some of those exam questions we've got. Getting them to highlight what is the command verb. How many marks is that question worth? And getting them to highlight key parts in that question to make sure they read them correctly. Carry out mock exams with your learners. making sure you're sitting them in test conditions using past papers and question types. Review what your learners have learned after each question using key facts. Making sure you are using review, check and understanding. Making sure they've learnt the key A and P terms. You will need to think about those learners before they sit that test, getting them to read through the whole paper before they start. Making sure they start on the questions they're confident at. This year, in the spring exam series, our learners didn't do quite so well, but they did turn it round in the June series. And what lots of centres stated with their learners is start on the extended response question first, the case study question. It'll be at the back of your paper, but please start on that question first, because most of our learners are visual learners. Actually, the case study questions tells them a story, it's a case study, and it puts them at ease slightly. Also, we have to say to our learners that actually that case study question could be worth 12 to 15 marks. Give them timings. State to them if the test is for 2 hours and 40 minutes, then actually you want them to spend 20 minutes to half an hour on that case study question, because it's worth quite a lot of marks. Making sure they look at the time allocated, making sure that they allocate how many questions there are and how much time they're going to spend on each question. Lessons last year, in some cases, and this happened quite a lot, with the end knowledge test at level 3 could be 2 hours 30 minutes, 2 hours 40 minutes. We had some learners that left the exam room and were completed in an hour. Never guess what? They failed. So a hint and tip there, tell your learners that if they're in that exam room, they're in there for the duration of the exam. They're not allowed out after an hour or half an hour or 45 minutes. They have to understand that this is really important, that they stay there for the full 2.5 hours. And also, it disrupts other learners if you've got learners that are leaving halfway through the exam. So, command verbs. Looking back at how our learners prepared and how our learners achieved last year, is they did quite well with the lower level command verbs. Command verbs such as state, list, label, identify. They did really well with those. The ones they didn't do quite so well with was the ones such as explain, discuss and describe. They didn't go into the depth and breadth that we needed to know. They were giving us, when we were asking them to describe a massage movement, they were just telling us what it was, and they didn't go into the depth around it. Evaluate. As part of the synoptic assessment, our learners are asked to evaluate their performance afterwards. In some cases, our learners didn't do quite so well. I think this is something we've got to start with our learners from day one. We find it very difficult to be able to evaluate our performance if we have to evaluate a lesson. A 16, 18-year-old finds it really difficult. If you get my product updates, I give you hints and tips. And one of the hints and tips I suggested is that actually when you start to, from day one, start to maybe set your learners up with a critical friend, so that they maybe start to think about recording each other. Every learner has an iPhone. Every learner, has a tablet, or most learners do. Maybe they can record each other doing that consultation, doing that aftercare advice. From this, they can watch it afterwards and think, okay, what was my body language like? Was I smiling at the client? Was I using open and closed questions? Was I actually giving detailed aftercare advice? By doing this, it will also support our learners with actually knowing how important consultation is and how important the aftercare is, because this was one of the areas our learners again didn't do quite so well as part of the synoptic assessment. Beauty therapists did it slightly better than us as hairdressers, because with beauty therapy at level 3, that client had to be unfamiliar to them. So they did the full consultation, they did the full aftercare. But with hairdressing, because we were allowing them to pick those clients, in some cases their consultation skills went out the window because they were over familiar with that client. They didn't shine. Sometimes they forgot about the aftercare. So it's how we put things into practice now to fully support our learners to be able to showcase their skills to the best of their ability. We've got a couple of questions coming up, so I will just have a quick look at, is there any more than one example for the mock exam available? Well, I'm going to go through the exam questions in a moment. The exam guides, there's some more in there, so I will go through those with you. Okay, so I'm going to go through the new technical exam guides. These are going to be your Bible, and it has got some more mock exam questions in there for you. So, in the exam guides, we've got details of the exams in the first section. In the second section, it'll go through the content assessed by the exam. What is the critical knowledge that is going to be in that knowledge test? Section 3 goes through the guidance about what sort of language will be used in the exam and how you will, what sort of command verbs and links to other support teaching exam preparation guides for you. We're going to go through today one for makeup artistry. I've chosen makeup artistry because obviously it has a bit of hair and a bit of beauty in it, but we have each of these exam guides for every technical qualification. The way where you find them is if you go into your complex number, so if it's hairdressing it'll be 6002, beauty therapy 6003, media 6010. If you go into your documents, if you go into the level and go into assessment, these exam guides will be found right at the bottom of all your documents, and there will be one for every technical qualification. So we're going to go through the makeup artistry with you today. In the makeup artistry, it tells you they will be made up of around about 60 questions. Approximately 10 to 12 will be short answer questions, which the marks range will be from 2 to 8. And there will be one extended response question, which will be 12 to 15 marks. I'm just going to explain this guide to you. What we're stating here now is that we have got 3 types of questions. We've got recollection of knowledge. These questions around this area are going to be your state, your list, your label type questions, your lower level command verbs. Under understanding of concepts and theories, these are going to be around your describe, your explain, your justify, where we need a bit more in-depth response from your learners. And then we've got your integrated application of knowledge and understanding, which will be your extended response, your case study question. So these link again to your assessment objectives. So recall of knowledge is going to be weighted at 43% of the test. So in that knowledge test, we will have questions that are around state, list, label type questions, and that's going to be 43%. Questions that demonstrate understanding, which are going to be your command verbs around describe, explain, justify, is going to be 37% of the test. And your case study, which applies knowledge and understanding across all your skills, is going to be 20%. So we're going to go into the exam guide now. Okay, so when you get this, this will take you to a hyperlink which takes you to the technical certificate in makeup artistry. But as I say, we have these for every qualification. I'm going to start to move through now, and I'm going to spend a bit of time going through this guide to examination with you. So obviously the first part is telling you the 4 areas that we're going to be concentrating on. Details of the exam comes first, all right? Again here, it gives you a link to the Teaching and Learning Assessment Guide to help you fully prepare your learners. And in the exam requirements, it tells you for makeup artistry, the theory exam is going to be 2 hours long. So you can say to your learners that you're going to be in that theory room for 2 hours. And then it goes into details of how that exam is going to be broken up. Again here, we tell you, we take you a link to the exam timetable, so you'll know exactly what date that knowledge test is going to be taken on, at what time. We then go into a little bit more information about that test. As I say, it tells you it's going to be 60 marks, approximately 10 to 12 are going to be short answer questions, and you're going to have 1 extended response. Again, I've gone through this bit. Recollection of knowledge is going to be 43%, which is going to be questions around your list, your state, your label type, lower level command verbs. 37% of it is going to be around demonstrating understanding, so where the learners have got to tell me why, to describe, explain, compare. And then you've got 20%, which is going to be from your case study type questions. Then it goes into, obviously, booking your exam. Okay, we know by 22nd December we've got to tell sitting guilds if you're going to do this exam as paper-based or online. If it's paper-based or online, it'll be exactly the same test. One won't be multiple choice, they're all short answer questions. Also, if you've got special considerations or if you need learners to have access to assessment, if a learner needs extra time or a reader, obviously you've got to let us know that, and your exams department will know exactly how to get support from that. Then we go into the content of the exam. If you came to my spring sessions, I did say to you at one point we thought that predominantly the knowledge test will be around principles of working, the 201 unit. But when we looked at that, it was then really heavy on the health and safety side. So we decided to break it up slightly more. So what it tells us now is these, in makeup artistry, these are the areas that will be tested. So it'll be Unit 201, 202, 203 and 204. It then breaks down each learning outcome. So this is where you get your qualification handbook and you highlight all the areas that are going to be covered in that knowledge test. So we can see it's going to be on 201. 14 marks will be allocated out of the 60 marks to your 201 health and safety and understanding principles of working as a makeup in the makeup industry. So you'll highlight safe working practices, your legislations, your skin sensitivity tests, any contraindications, communication methods, behaviours and sales opportunities. So there it tells me actually that is weighted quite heavily at 14 marks is going to be allocated to Unit 201. So if you are going to split your theory lessons into what I need to know to pass my test, this is what I will be delivering in that hour's theory lessons or 2 hour theory lessons to your learners. Then we look at the A&P, and actually, although A&P is quite important, only 6 marks are allocated to the Unit 202. So again, with your qualification handbook, there could be questions around the structure and function of the skin, characteristics of the structure of the hair, functions of the skeletal system, the location of bones in the face and the upper body, location of the muscles of the face, location of the muscles of the upper body. But we can see here now that actually in that lesson I've got to concentrate on the principles of working in the makeup industry because it's worth 14 marks. Yes, I'm still going to cover the A and P, but we can see here that it's only going to be 6 marks. If we were to look at a beauty therapy exam guide, you will know that you will see that the A and P for beauty therapy will be much higher. So each area, each qualification, we've looked at what is going to be the critical knowledge of a makeup artist. What is going to be the critical knowledge for a hairdresser? What is going to be the critical knowledge for a beauty therapist? So each one will be very different. Then we've got Unit 203, Principles of Researching, 16 marks. Because for a makeup artist, they need to be able to research. They need to understand how they're going to showcase their design because this is critical knowledge for a makeup artist. So again, you'll get your qualification handbook out and you would highlight these areas. So it's going to be researching for makeup designs, influences of current makeup trends, planning for makeup and hair designs, budgeting, producing portfolios, showcasing makeup design ideas. So 16 marks will be allocated to Unit 203. Then the art of applying makeup, again, critical knowledge here, 12 marks will be allocated to this area. They have to know the critical knowledge between around skin colour and types and tones. You know, neutralising colour correction, neutralising out those skin tones. If somebody's got a very, very pink skin or sallow skin, what will neutralise it out? Enhancing and correcting the face shapes. Also, they need to understand tools and equipment, creating the looks. So makeup products, tools and equipment, care of products, tools and equipment. Photographic makeup, prepare for makeup services, providing aftercare advice. So 48 marks will come from those 4 assessment areas, those 4 units. So 204, 203, 202 and 201. Your case study question, which is going to be 12 marks, will go across all your units. And we're going to look at what that's going to look like in a moment. So, preparing your learners. So in that knowledge, you will have these type of command verbs. So these are the types of things you need to start to talk to your learners about now. About what do we mean by describe? What do we mean by compare? What do we mean by analyse? So in your theory lessons, these are the types of command verbs you need to start to be talking to your learners about. What do we mean by explain? What do we mean by evaluate? Then I'm going to go on to some question types. Our learners did really well with the state questions this year. So this is the first type. So this is recall of knowledge. State 5 benefits of producing a mood board. It's worth 5 marks. So we're preparing our learners for that knowledge test. I'd want them to highlight the command verb, state 5 benefits of producing a mood board. So highlight 5 marks. It tells me I need 5 bullet points to try and maximise to getting 5 marks. So these aren't exhaustive, okay? My markers will be looking for positives. So 5 marks could come from expressing ideas, to present to a client, to showcase creativity skills, showcase a creative story. So these types of questions our learners did quite well with last year. The next question is a two-part question, a structured response question. Now, our learners did quite well with part A's, but they didn't then go in and do part B. So we really need to make our learners aware that in some questions there will be a part A and a part B, and they have to make sure they answer both areas. So here we got a makeup artist is booked to complete a bridal makeup service and has noticed the client has small red blisters around their mouth. State the skin disorder these symptoms suggest. These skin symptoms suggest it is a cold sore, and they would get a mark for a cold sore. We would not accept impetigo, because impetigo would be yellow, it would be crusty, it wouldn't be just red blisters around the mouth. Now, I've been doing this as network meetings. I've done about 3 or 4 now, and this actually has brought up quite an interesting discussion. Part B now is explain the safety considerations to take into account when carrying out the service. Some people have said, actually, if the client had a cold sore, they would stop the service. And I would probably agree with that if it was beauty therapy and actually it was a facial. We would probably agree with that. But actually, this is makeup artistry. Okay, I'm the bride, I'm getting married today, and I've got a cold sore. Is my makeup artist really going to say to me, sorry, I can't do your makeup today? This is a different industry to that of beauty therapy. Or you're on set with Beyonce and she's got a cold sore. You're not going to be a great makeup artist if you say, do you know what, I can't do your makeup today because you've got a cold sore. You know, we are going to have to think about this is a slightly different industry to a beauty therapist. So part B is, and it's worth 6 marks, so we want our learners to answer this correctly. Explain the safety considerations to take when carrying out a service. So they have to tell me what the safety considerations would be, but they also have to tell me why, because the command verb is explain. So use disposable applicators. Okay, that's great, but why? To avoid infection. Wear personal protective equipment. That's great, but they have to tell me why. Sterilise all equipment after service. Okay, but why? Wash hands before and after the service. Yeah, that's great, that's correct, but tell me why. And this is worth 6 marks. So we have to make sure our learners are fully prepared, that they understand we're talking about explain as a command verb. They need to go and justify why. Then we're going on to the extended response question. Again, some learners did quite well, but they need to structure their response, and we need to be able to support them with structuring this response. So a freelance makeup artist has been contacted by a client who's getting married in August. The client would like both herself and her mother to have their hair styled and makeup applied for the big day. We're now asking them to discuss the considerations when planning and preparing. Now this is worth 12 marks. So what we've done here to support you, to support your learner, is we've given them some indicative content. And this indicative content obviously is tailored to every exam guide that we've done. So here we're telling them, okay, to be able to maximise your marks, you need to investigate needs and wants, e.g. what is the client's skin type, what is their condition, what is their tone, what is their colour, what is their face shape. So they need to write something around skin types and conditions. They need to write something around aftercare and recommendations for the day. They need to write something about costings, travel, timely ordering of products, cost efficiencies. They need to be talking about having a trial run. Effects of lighting. Makeup is suitable photography. Suggested makeup and hair application techniques. Time of the year of the wedding, time of the day may affect your product choice if the wedding has a theme. So we've given you that indicative content which you can share with your learners. And then what we have done in the exam guides is we've given you a response from a learner that is a lower level learner. And this response would get 1 to 4 marks. And it's quite a brief response. Then we've given you an example from a middle of the road learner that maybe would get 5 to 8 marks. It goes into a little bit more detail. So the response covers some main considerations, a wide range of considerations made throughout. Then we give you an example from a higher level learner that's given us a thorough and well-prepared response that covers a broad range of considerations. So this learner then has gone for the higher level marks. So as I say, these exam guides are all on the website under Documents, Level, Assessment. If anybody struggles finding them, just drop me an email and I'm more than happy to send you the links to these. But please use these. Our examiners have spent an awful lot of time trying to support you, to support your learners. You can use these with your learners. You can use these as an examples. Then if we go further on down, again, it goes into examination techniques, what we need to do before the exam, you know, to try and make sure that the learners are fully prepared, be familiar with the structure of the exam. To say, with the exam, it starts to build, and it will build from Unit 201 through to 202, 203 to 203, onto then the extended response at the end. I would probably recommend you get your learners to do the extended response first. Go to the back of the paper, read all the questions through first, go to the back of the paper, do maybe that extended response first, and tell them, actually, do you know what, I want you to spend 20 minutes, half an hour on that extended response. They should have that indicative content in their mind to make sure that they are hitting every one of those points, to make sure they're structuring that extended response to maximise their marks. At the start of the exam, read carefully through the instructions of the exam, making sure that they are understanding, reading those questions thoroughly. It gives you tips on answering the questions, tackling first those questions which they find the easiest. If they go to the first question and it's a health and safety question and they're a bit stumped, then don't start on that question. Start on a question they feel a little bit more confident at. The extended answer question, before writing it out in full, they might want to write a few notes down first. So making sure they've got some pieces of paper to go in there first, to make sure that they're making sure that they are doing that response clearly. And again, what to do towards the end of the exam. Please make sure they stay in there for the duration of the test. Making sure they set aside time at the end of the exam to read back and review their questions. Making sure that this is legible, makes sense. Making sure that they've read the question and answered the question in full. So I hope you're going to find these exam guides useful. As I say, there's more further response back there as you go through. We go back to the slide now. So, just check see if there are any other questions. No questions at the moment around the knowledge. So I'm going to now go through preparing your learners for the Synoptic practical assignment. As I say, our principal moderators will be carrying out webinars which will be tailored to hair, to beauty, to media, and then one for Key Stage 4 as well. But what we need to be aware of is maybe learning from some of the lessons learned last year, We know that the synoptic assessment is going to be obviously linked to the industry. It's our employers that say what are the most important skills to make somebody most employable. In some cases, we do have research activities. We know for makeup artistry this year, it's going to be the 1960s. Please make sure that if there is a research and we're giving those learners an era, you know, the Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals, that actually they are following that brief carefully. They're making sure that if it is the 1960s, it is the 1960s. If it is the Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals, it is the Andrew Lloyd. Don't let your learners go off a tangent. Make sure you're checking their research to make sure it's fully meeting that design brief. Reflection and evaluation. For every synoptic assessment, they have to be able to evaluate afterwards. You do not have to do the evaluation on the same day as your practical. And in some cases, centres did do the evaluation on the same day. But for those learners that maybe had a 5-hour, 6-hour trade test, they were exhausted at the end of it. If the learner did it on the same day, they're not going to put their effort into it. So get those learners to go away, come back with a fresh mind, a fresh head, and actually reflect and evaluate the following day or within 3 working days. We use a moderation approach to ensure robust quality and rigour. Making sure before your moderator comes in that you have standardised your marking across different markers. No, you haven't got all the IQA activity to do. You haven't got the burden of ongoing assessment, but you have to show us that each marker has a standardised approach. You have a 12-week window to be able to make sure your learners are ready to sit that end practical assessment. You manage that 12-week window. After Christmas, our moderation support team will be contacting you to discuss when you are thinking of starting to assess your learners. They will pick a date where we will send in a moderator to you. For Key Stage 5, across hair and beauty, everybody will have a visiting moderation this year. So our moderator will book a date where they will come in and they will mark alongside you across so many different learners. They may only see 6 learners on that day. That's not a problem. They can only see a maximum, I think, in 8 in some cases, or if it's media, it's up to 10. All that detail is in your synoptic assessment. When they come in, they will mark alongside you. They will start to think about which band your learners are sitting in. And it's really important that we remember the 3 bands that we have. We have the top band, we have the middle band, and we have the bottom band. Please don't think that the bottom band is a pass, the middle band is a merit, and the top band is a distinction. That isn't how it works with the technicals. We are allocating marks. We do not know at the moment what a pass is going to be, what a merit is going to be, and what a distinction is going to be. If your learners have too many marks in the bottom band, they will not pass. Please make sure we know what competent looks like. We know what a learner that is ready to go into industry looks like. But if that learner has too many low marks, they won't pass that practical synoptic assessment. So don't think that that bottom band is a pass. As I say, it might not be. So our moderator will come in and mark alongside you. All right, they will start to think about allocating points. They won't be able to fully assign marks to those learners on that day because they won't see the full evidence. They won't have seen the evaluation. So the markers as a marker, you will start to think about where your learners sit. And you have to think about your cohort of learners, thinking about allocating marks, sitting them on the staircase. Who is your top learner? Who is the next learner? Who is your bottom learner? And where they sit within your cohort of learners. Our moderators are trained about what is the national standard. You may only know what is happening within your centre. You may not knows what's happening in Newcastle, in Cornwall, in Essex. But our moderators are now trained of what is the national standard. So you have to be able to mark across the cohort of your learners, and you have to be able to allocate those marks on their performance on that day, holistically across all of that synoptic assignment. When that window closes, you have to submit your evidence for those learners that moderator would have observed that day, but with the full evidence, photographic evidence that we've detailed to you in that synoptic assignment, plus their evaluation, plus their task 1, their task 2, and their evidence for task 3. What the moderator will then do is remark with the final bit of evidence. And if you are within that 5% tolerance, remarks either side, that's great. To make up that full sample size, the moderator will then want to see the learner from your cohort that's got the very, very top marks, the very, very bottom marks, and then evidence from each marker to make sure everybody is marking with a standardised approach. If your moderator then feels that actually across the national standard you are marking too harshly and you're not within tolerance, if they have got the evidence, they can then raise your marks for your cohort at your college for that year. Or if they feel you're being too lenient, they can lower it. But it's really important for our moderators to be able to make that judgment. We have to have really clearly marked evidence with clearly labelled and clear photographic evidence. Because in some cases last year, some of the evidence wasn't labelled correctly or clearly. And in some cases, the photographic evidence that we had wasn't clear, that we weren't able to make those clear judgment calls. So in the Synoptic Assessment Guide, we've gone into really details of exactly what photographic evidence we want, how those photos, you need to think about the backdrop. Don't do it on a black backdrop, don't do it on a coloured backdrop, do it on something that is quite a plain backdrop. Making sure that if you are taking pictures of hair or makeup, the lighting is good, that we can actually see the detail of that hair or that makeup. If your moderator decides to make adjustment of your marks, maybe raising them or lowering them, it will be done alongside the principal moderator to make sure that they are in complete agreement to it. But we have to have clear evidence to be able to do that. The practical contributes to 60% of the technical qualification. So obviously for the technical, they have to be able to pass both elements. For the knowledge, we have a resit within the same academic year. For the practical, we don't. Those learners, if they don't pass that practical, could resit it the following academic year when the window opens in February. And then if they do want to do it, then the knowledge can be carried over from the first year. But remember, you may not get repeat funded for the same learner name, but that learner could resit again when the window opens in the following academic year. So we now have 5 assessment objectives. Obviously, lessons learnt from last year, we did used to have 8, but there was a crossover of an awful lot of them, of across the different assessment objectives. So we simplified it. So AO1, AO2, AO3, AO4 and AO5. Each one will be weighted slightly differently depending on the technical qualification. So AO1 is recall of knowledge. AO1 is predominantly around about safe working practices, health and safety, making sure they have that recall of knowledge. AO2 comes from a variety of different methods. It comes from task 1. It comes from task 1 if they are researching a particular area, if they are doing their treatment plans, their service plans. It comes from AO2, AO task 2 as well, they're practical. We can see the way a learner works if they've got the understanding of what they're doing. It also comes from the final piece of the puzzle, the evaluation. Please make sure that your learners do spend time evaluating. AO3 is from the application of their practical skills, but don't forget it's holistic assessment across all of those practical skills. AO4 is bringing it all together in a coherent way. This is where your timings come in. Have they done it in the most logical order? Your commercial timings, yes, we're giving them 4, 5 hours, 6 hours to do these practical synoptic assessments. It doesn't mean to say they go into slightly over the time that they fail. You know, we don't talk about failing. You then have to think about the bigger picture. Why did they go over? If it's because they weren't prepared or they didn't do it in the most logical sequence, then yes, they are going to lose marks. But if it's because they were meeting the need of that client, maybe that client needed reassurance, or maybe they needed to go to the toilet, or they had to have a break or something, then you have to think about the bigger picture. AO5 is all about that learner that's got the X factor outcome, that attention to detail. That learner that, yes, can walk the walk and talk the talk, but looks for that attention to detail, that perfection, wants to go the extra mile for that client, looks after that client. So they are our 5 assessment objectives we will be marking to this academic year. So understanding how to award marks within each AO. Each band will have a different range of marks that you can allocate. So say band 1, depending on the weighting of that band, will be 1 to 3 marks, 1 to 4 marks, in some cases 1 to 8 marks, depending on the weighting of that band. Please, and I can't say this enough, don't think band 1 is a pass. If a learner gets too many marks in band 1, they will fail. Band 2, the range could be 5 to 8, it could be more depending on the weighting of that outcome. And band 3 is your higher band, which could be 9 to 12 or even more marks. You need to use these bandings to place your marks. You need to think about where each learner sits. Do they sit in the top band, the middle band, or the bottom band? And then you have to make a judgment call, where do they sit within that band? Do they sit at the top of band 3, middle of band 3, or bottom of band 3? Or top of band 2, middle of band 2, bottom of band 2? Or the same with band 1. Top of band 1, middle of band 1, bottom of band 1. You need to think about your band marks and how each learner has performed, if, say, higher or lower within the band. Use some of the band descriptors that we've given you to think about where those learners sit, but you then have to be able to justify your marks, why you've decided that that learner has got 10 marks within band 3. You have to be able to give us that justification. Use this as part of your standardisation activities, making sure all markers are singing from the same song sheet. that evidence of that will need to be shown to your moderator. When your moderator looks at the sample, they will be looking across the ranks for your learners, your top learner, your bottom learner, and those in between, but also across different markers as well. And it needs to be evident that each marker is marking against the same type of criteria, that you have standardised your marks. Employer involvement activity. Employer involvement activity is only applicable for Key Stage 5. I'll go back and have a look at the questions in a moment. I'm just going to finish this a moment. So, employer involvement activity. If you're a returning centre, you need to submit your employer involvement activities in June. If you are a new centre, you need to submit your employer involvement plan by the 15th of December. Your employer involvement plan is only a plan. Okay? It's what you are intending to do. You don't have to state what each learner has done until June. Examples of good employer involvement is work experience. We have to, if you are doing this under a programme of study, then you will have to do your employer involvement activities anyway. It's a done deal. It could be used in employers to support formative assessment. It could be product and manufacturer training. It could be masterclass. As part of the employer involvement activity, when you have to submit it in June, you have to show that each learner has undertaken meaningful employer involvement activities. So you have to make sure you've got that ready. Right, I'm just going to go and have a look at a few questions that have come up. When the endpoint trade test exam takes place, can the groups be split within 2 rooms? The external moderator will be going between 2 rooms. If you've got the moderator in there, it's probably best that they're all in one room because they need to be able to observe all those learners. But I would highly recommend that you maybe have 2 markers. At the moment, this is going to be quite alien to you. Until you get fully familiar with the marking, I would say try and think about having 2 markers if you can afford to do that in the class. The moderator will only sample, all right? They're not going to see all the learners, and if you have got 2 groups having it one day, they would choose one group to look at. Okay, we've got somebody asking, can you point me in the direction for the documentation and the process that will be involved to when we evaluate and moderate? Okay, we've got the moderator's guide, which when I send you this presentation, there is a link to your moderation support guide. But don't forget, we will be doing some webinars with our principal moderators on best practice of how you allocate marks and how you mark performance. They will happen at the beginning of February, so as soon as I've got those dates, I will send them to you. Okay. Is there a sample synoptic mark sheet for tutors? Yes, these are being done now. They are, well, we were hoping they would be with you by the end of November, but we are just trying to make them slightly clearer. They should be available for you in the next week. As soon as I have them, again, I'll send them out to everybody. But at the moment, if you're doing mock assessments, just use your marking grids from last year, but just take out the other AOs. Use your descriptors from the back of the Synoptic Assessments. What I will do now, I'm running out of time slightly a little bit, so I don't think there's many more questions, but what I will do is I will type up the questions and I will respond to these when I email you back the presentation. Okay, I'm going to move on now. Okay, so planning for the synoptic assessment. If you get my product updates, I've been sending these out to you as hints and tips throughout, just to prepare your learners. So get ready for your learners to shine like a star, making sure they are fully prepared. Failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. Making sure that you have read that synoptic assessment through. Now, in your synoptic assignment that are password protected, it starts to build. It tells you in the assignment brief, and the assignment brief is what you can give to your learners 3 weeks or 4 weeks before their assessment date. You can't give them the details of task 1 and task 2, but you should be fully familiar with what is in task 1, what is in task 2, and what is in task 3. So make sure that when you give your learners that assessment brief, they completely understand what they are looking for. If they are having to research an era, making sure that they follow that era. Making sure you're preparing for the synoptic practical test. Making sure you know exactly what is in there. Making sure your learners are fully prepared. Making sure in hairdressing and in some cases in beauty therapy, we're allowing them to pick their clients. Making sure they're picking the right clients to be able to showcase their skills to the best of their ability. Making sure they know exactly how long they've got for that practical test. Making sure they have got reliable models on the day that will not let them down. You need to be able to brief their models also to make sure that their models know that they're going to have to play a game on the day if it's somebody that is familiar to them. That they have to act as if the learner has never met that client before, but also that client is acting like a client on the day. Try to encourage them not to use their mobile phones. Try to encourage them to act in a professional way that learner then has the best opportunity to be able to gain the best marks possible. Making sure they are prepared. Making sure they've got all their products, their tools and equipment ready for that day. Thinking about the questions that they may be asked. Obviously, we don't want to ask too many questions, but if your marker needs to be able to clarify something, making sure that learner is fully prepared. Get the learner to write a list of questions that they may be asked during that performance. Because don't forget, we're still looking for task 2, we're still checking assessment objective 2, where we're getting the understanding of the depth and breadth of knowledge of what they're doing. That is still what we're checking as part of their synoptic practical assessment. Are you ready? Remember your 5 P's. Planning, preparation prevents poor performance. So practice makes perfect. Making sure they're doing something on the day that they have already perfected. We know we say you can't keep on practicing on that client, but make sure that they are doing something that they have already perfected. Mock test standardisation activities. Making sure you've had several mock tests to make sure that learner performs under test conditions. Yes, they are going to be nervous on the day, but we want to try and make sure that we fully prepared them. Evaluation. We've given you some tips around evaluation here because it's something our learners didn't do great at last year. So giving them these questions, how well were they planned for their work? Did time management go for the different services? Did they follow their plan? If something did go wrong, and quite often things do go wrong on the day, tell us why. You know, if the colour didn't quite come out as you planned, which happens quite a lot with colours, that's okay, that's not a problem, but tell me why and what would you do differently in the future. Did they meet the full assignment brief? Think about your timings. If your observation was timed, did you complete it in the allocated time? If not, was it because You didn't carry it out in the most logical order. You know, if you're doing a restyle, hopefully you'd colour it before you restyled it. Were you fully prepared before starting the task? Did you have all your equipment or products ready? You didn't have to go off and find, you know, a piece of equipment that you needed halfway through. You know, if we're allowing you to pick those clients and you know what the service is going to be, you should have all your products and tools and equipment ready. The only practical, obviously, with beauty therapy is where you've got to be working on unfamiliar clients. Obviously, you know, your treatment, your consultation, your treatment plan with your client, obviously you need to be thinking about getting things ready. Have a junior with you in your classroom. In your synoptic briefs, it goes into that detail if you can have a junior there. And it goes into what activities that junior can do. At level 3 in hairdressing, we say you can have a level 2 junior in there, you know, a lower level, that maybe can meet and greet your clients, make your clients teas and coffee, maybe rinse off that colour for you. Doing those sort of things, it will detail exactly what can be done. At level 2, you can have a level 1 learner in there, again, you know, tidying up after you, meeting and greeting those clients, getting them coffees, teas, coffee, magazines. Tip 6, working on models. If your task requires you to work with a model, make sure you've got the best opportunity to showcase your skills. Don't try something new on the day that you haven't already perfected. If you're working with models, do they need to be briefed on their expectations? And tip 7 is collecting evidence. Please make sure that you are making sure your photographic evidence is clear, well lit, and it is labelled clearly with the learner's name and their enrolment number on it. Making sure that you are uploading everything that is needed to be able to give that learner the best opportunity to be able to get the best marks, and it makes sure it meets the full requirements of the brief. Okay, I'm just going to finish now with some qualification support resources we've got there to support you. We have got our enhanced beauty therapy smart screen at level 2 and level 3, which is completely linked to the technical qualifications. We have schemes of work, we have lesson plans, handouts, activities, and we have video e-learning. These enhanced packages are £850 each at each level, but it has unlimited access for all your tutors and all your learners. For hairdressing, we have now got our level 2 and level 3 Barbering Enhanced Smart Screen. It's fully supported. It has all your lesson plans, all your schemes of work, like beauty therapy, with video e-learning as well. For this package at level 2 and level 3, they are priced at £850. Exactly the same for beauty therapy, unlimited access for all your tutors and all your learners. For hairdressing, we haven't got the enhanced package yet. We will have by May next year. We have got your basic pack, which introduces you to all the sample schemes of work, lesson plans, individual learning plans, and consultation sheets. We have links to JISC videos, but we are now, after Christmas, re-videoing all of our step-by-steps, and we will have the enhanced package ready for you by May next year. Because this isn't enhanced, it is only £350, but again, unlimited access for all your learners and all your tutors. We have our learner journals. Our learner journals are there to support the journey. Although we have got in there places where you need to sign to show IQA activity, you do not have to have all these signed and completed. Our moderators will not look at these at all. It's all about a reflective journal for your learner, support them for each of the qualifications. You have formative assessments in there where the learners can rank themselves. We've got areas there where they have to evaluate their performance. We've got coverage of values and behaviours, unit planners, scope records, useful glossary definitions of terms. We also have our textbooks. We have them now for Level 2 Beauty Therapy, and we have them for Level 2 in Hairdressing and Barbering. They went live this year. If you haven't got your inspection copy, when you get this presentation, if you just click on one of the links, then Hodder, who is our new partner for our textbooks, will send you a complimentary inspection copy. Obviously, the Level 3 ones went live last year. Currently, we don't have anything for makeup artistry, but we are hoping to have some support resources for makeup artistry next academic year. So, just a checklist before you go as a reminder. Obviously, you've now had to register all your learners for technicals for this year. That had to be done by the end of October. By the 22nd of December, you need to tell us which learners are going to sit the exam in the spring. And you need to be telling us if they are doing it paper-based or online. This decision should be learner-led, should be what is right for each of your individual learners. You also have to let us know if they're doing the synoptic assessment this academic year, because don't forget, you could do this over 2 years. Okay, so some learners, maybe they're a part-time learner, they might be doing it over a 2-year period. You also have to tell us which optional units you're intending to offer. The reason we're asking you about the optional units at the moment is we want to be able to, on the portal, build a learner profile for each of your learners to ease for you for when you upload your evidence. If you decide that an optional unit you want to choose, but you want to change it and you feel actually some learners maybe decided to use epilation and you've got some learners that maybe are going to struggle with epilation, it's not written in stone. You can email our moderation support team and that can be changed. Okay, so it's not written in stone, but you do need to indicate to us at the moment which one you're intending to offer. And also you have to be able to submit your employer involvement plan if you are a new centre. Obviously you've got access to the synoptic assessments this year, for this academic year, and these can be released to your learners as from the 1st of February. But in your synoptic assessment packs, it will detail exactly when you can release it to your learners. It's usually 3 or 4 weeks before your first synoptic assessment will be taking place. Just a key checklist again of key dates. Here we go through quite simplified of when different activities need to happen. So it'll tell us for your first spring exam series, it'll be between the 26th of February to the 2nd of March. And it will tell you then that that result of that spring exam series will be told to you through Walled Garden on the 23rd of April. If you've got any learners that haven't been successful or want to improve their grade, you've got that week to be able to rebook them. You have to rebook it by the 27th of April. It then tells you your deadline for submitting your marks onto the moderation portal for the synoptic assignment, which is the 18th of May. Please don't leave it until the 18th of May. Please start uploading your evidence prior to that date. It then tells you when you will get your final results. Like GCSE, like an A-levels, these will, level 3 comes first. The reason level 3 will be communicated first is because obviously our level 3 qualifications have UCAS points, and obviously these need to be submitted slightly earlier for entry into university. So they will be on the 6th of August and your level 2s will be released to you on the 13th of August. These will all be these grades and their your marks and your grades will be on Walled Garden. Again, we have got our technical and moderation support team there. If you've got any technical queries, please come through to myself or Emma Mackay. But if you've got generic requirements that you need to talk through, we have got a designated moderation support team. The email address is on my screen, and you've got the hotline now, which you can speak to them at any time. They are there from Monday to Friday from 9 AM to 5 PM to support you with your general queries. So things like where to find your documents, timelines for registration bookings, exam timelines, if you need any more guidance around the moderation portal. Well, thank you very much for joining today. I hope you found it useful. This webinar has been recorded. So today I will send you my slides, but as soon as the recording has been published, I will send you the recording of this as well, so you can share or disseminate with other members within your teams. I will answer all the questions, and I will send you through answers to all the questions that have been asked today. So I'd just like to thank you for joining. I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And as soon as I get the dates for the webinars around the practical best practice of how to mark a synoptic assessment, I will email everybody. So thank you very much for joining me. Look forward to speaking to you all soon. I've stopped recording. Cool. Have I stopped recording?